information management while working on hold or working on an ECA, early case assessment tool. But have a plan in mind, and don't just try to attack the whole problem at once. I always encourage folks to focus on the value they're going to receive from individual sub-projects versus the spend, and look for opportunities early on in your project to show some really quick returns and show management that, yes, we are going to be spending some money, but here's value that we're receiving already out of your investment. And as I mentioned, being very linear, I like to have roadmaps and phased implementations. So what we've done in the past, and it has been very successful, is to start out with phase one of doing an overall assessment of their litigation environment, looking at the tools that they have, the processes they have, and it's usually multiple processes in a big organization to do holds and to do collections, and getting those, making recommendations on those to get them to fewer solutions is normally a good approach. Yeah, but look at their current environment, and then look at the gaps. Compare what they're doing to best practice, either out of EDRM has good best practice. Of course, the Sedona Conference has great information that they're publishing. Taking that gap, seeing where there are major holes in their processes, and then developing a risk analysis. What is the impact of continuing to do business this way? And put some sensitivities on it. What if our litigations go up by 10%, or our exposure in a per case goes up by 20? What does that do to our overall risk, and are we willing to accept that risk? And if not, then what are the approaches we're going to take to mitigate? And from all of that pre-work, you can develop your roadmap. This is going to be your step-by-step to get you to where you're going. What we normally see coming out of these bits of work is a phase two that you see here on the screen, with a big focus on ESI data mapping, developing policies and procedures, and then developing governance tools to make sure that we maintain this information in a timely fashion. Oops, excuse me. I got a little behind on my slides. We've talked about that. Okay, in the ESI data map, I really want to talk about the approach that we've taken. It was an approach I took when I was the director of discovery, that a lot of people wanted to talk about in the ESI data map, where do files set today and by file type. And that really wasn't an item that was of much interest to me or to outside counsel. We need to look at the history of our ESI environment. Where did systems come from? How did we get from where we are, or from where we were 5 years ago, to where we are today? And we'll go into that into a little more detail here in a moment. Some items to consider, though, is if you get too granular on this, it can be quite expensive and a full-time job to maintain. And it's really important, as I said, that we start with high-level system plans. And talking about the ESI map, once again, another phased methodology. But I'd really like to talk about what are the corporate details. How did the organization move from a mom and pop 10 years ago to a Fortune 50 that's global? What happened to their computer systems during those time frames? How has the organization grown and morphed? What have they done with the last two acquisitions they've done? How have they integrated ESI from a previous company into their current standings? What are the field offices? What information is held in a field office? What's the org chart? It's amazing that as a company, we do a lot of work in helping organizations develop their information management tools, and one element of that is a records schedule, record retention schedule. And we see folks these days putting org charts actually in their record schedule as a as a detailed item and putting a 3 to 5 year retention on it, so they know how the organization has morphed over time. The next phase we like to approach is more of an inventory of the infrastructure. So, high level, what do you use for an email system? How long has it been in place? What upgrades have you gone through? What are the policies and procedures that you use to manage those systems? So for email and for your for collaboration systems, file systems, document management systems, what are the systems that come up in every litigation that you do? And then subsequent to that, you can get more granular. Let's talk about if you're in a refining environment, process control systems. They don't come up all the time, but eventually they will, and it's good to know about them. And then, as I mentioned, the legacy aspect. How did you morph from PeopleSoft to SAP? What happened to that content? What are some of the data transitions that happened during that bit of work? Next phase is once again more granular. What are the types of files that you have? Where are they stored? What are the detailed things that a user group is doing to manage their information? What's your desktop environment like? What are users allowed to do and not allowed to do on their desktops? External drives. What are your policies and procedures? And then what do you really do around thumb drives and external hard drives? Any other kind of network device. And one of my soapbox items is backup media. How long do you maintain your backup media? And if it's greater than 14 days, why? That just doesn't make sense. If the purpose of that is to recover from a computer failure, more than 14 days is not logical. Further on down, talking to the users, we've understood now what the policies and procedures are. So what do you really do, end user? What's life really like here at the coalface? We like to do assessments of what's the impact of the external media that you're using, and then do a risk assessment of the user's behavior compared to what your policies really are. Continuing on, maintenance and governance of your ESI processes, and then once again a summary report, risk assessment, and recommendations. You notice all this is underpinned by project management. One of the issues that we've seen is, and I've been guilty of myself when working inside counsel, is that the project just kind of moves along on its own inertia. There's no management of that. You don't really know if you're late. You don't know if you're ahead. You don't know what you're spending. So it's real critical to have good, solid project management principles in place as you're going through this entire roadmap. In follow-up phases, we do like to focus on archiving. So what are our strategies? What are the technologies we want to use? So we look at technologies not only for archiving, but for the discovery component. So what are the collection tools, ECA tools, potentially data mapping tools that we want to take a look at to be able to reduce our cost? Once we have our processes in place, then it's time to automate, not vice versa. We also look at strategic hosting vendors. In a previous employment, I came on board and we had nearly 20 hosting vendors. And we looked at that as a great opportunity to reduce down, leverage the buying power that we had in the numerous litigations we were doing that each year, and integrate our processes into theirs, be able to negotiate some fairly aggressive pricing, and be able to have cost savings by including all of our discovery content at one location. Then finally, archiving technologies themselves. We've developed our archiving strategy. Now we're looking at the tools that we're going to be using to archive our email and archive our records. There are certain records that we're absolutely going to have to keep for the long term, And how do you do that? Do you keep them live on spinning drives in Microsoft Word? What version? Do you worry about that? What if you're going to do a major software upgrade? So a lot of folks are moving to a PDF or PDFA type of environment for their long-term e-records. So things to avoid, and I've kind of beat on this a little bit, is don't buy technologies before you really understand your business processes. Make sure your business processes are solid, and then automate those. Don't forget the impact that all this change has on your end users, and how do we really influence their behaviors. When you're creating your policies, don't create policies that will instantly take you out of compliance. Have a transition plan on your compliance. This is part of your overall roadmap. And of course, don't skip on training. We're changing the way that users are going to have to behave. Some of those users are going to be attorneys. We've got to train them so that they do the right thing at the right time. It's critical that we have the tools and the processes and people trained on them, so that we can go to court and say, yes, Your Honor, this is the way we do discovery. We do it this way every time. Here's our note.